Okay, that was the scene that played out in the House of Commons today. Repeated calls for Julian Fantino to resign or be fired by the Prime Minister. The Veterans Affairs Minister has been taking a lot of heat for weeks. He's had tussles with vets and family members. He's been accused of shortchanging critical frontline services and mental health programs for vets. And now, for some the last straw, Mr. Fantino was heading to Italy while the Auditor General was delivering a blistering report on mental health program for vets. He said the trip was long planned. The opposition don't buy it. Then it was revealed that a $200 million program announced for 6 years will actually dribble out in 50 years. The program announced just a day and a half before the Auditor General's report. Did Minister Fantino deliberately fudge the numbers on that? Was he trying to mislead Canadians or not? Is it time for him to go? Or is he doing a good job? Let's find out. Joining me now in the foyer of the House of Commons, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade, Erin O'Toole, the Defence Critic for the NDP, Jack Harris, and the Liberal Veterans Affairs Critic, Frank Valera. Good to see you, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Mr. Harris. Why are you calling for Mr. Fantino's resignation?
Well, it's a rare thing to do, but Thomas Mulcair in the House today called for his resignation. I think he's lost faith with veterans. I don't think very many people, if anyone, except those on his side, say that he's doing a good job. We've all seen the wagging of the finger at veterans. We know that this was a very hastily called press conference last Sunday, knowing that the Auditor General's report was coming down on Tuesday. They fudged the numbers. They made it sound bigger than it was. I think even the Prime Minister this week said he thought it was $1 billion they were putting up. So there's a lot of confusion on this front. The minister's the front man. He's the one responsible. He should go.
Okay. What about you, Mr. Valera? I mean, you might not like his policies, but is that any reason to resign? And, you know, the minister has said squarely, this is how budgeting is done on the $200 million. And this trip to Italy that, you know, both leaders said that he's dodging. He said this was planned back in August, and he was with vets who were memorializing the invasion of Italy 7 years ago.
He didn't have to be away that long.
70 years ago.
He didn't have to be away that long, number one. Number two, if you put it in context, it does come just at the end of a series of events. Not the least of which is the fact that there was a unanimous Veterans Committee report, 14 recommendations that he embraced and did nothing to help, nothing to advance in the audit, the budget rather, of the fall. Not a mention of veterans. His finger wagging, as was mentioned, his running away from Jenny Mignot, and now not showing up in question period to be accountable for the $200 million. But I'll tell you, proof is in the pudding. As soon as it was found out that it was over 50 years, it was immediately removed from their website. And furthermore, we were to have either he or people from his department at committee on Wednesday to discuss not just the $200 million, but other estimates, all canceled. And I have since learned that in addition to the $4 million increase in the spring for advertising, there's another $5 million this fall in the estimates. And they don't want to be accountable and answer to us or to veterans.
Okay. Mr. O'Toole, let's talk about this. And many people believe that he's lost credibility. This isn't the first time there have been calls for Minister Fantino's resignation. Remember back in January, Fantino was late for a meeting with a group of veterans. They said he was rude to them. It was all caught on tape. Let me just show you. This is part of this narrative that he's lost touch with his key constituency. Here's what happened at that meeting.
There's going to be someone there in every one of those places to look after us.
Well, you know, this finger-pointing stuff doesn't really work very well with me.
Then in May, he was chased down the hall by a veteran's wife, urging more support and training for spouses. Also caught on tape. Check this out.
Mr. Fantino, I'm just a vet spouse. You're forgetting us. Once more. We're nothing to you.
Then there was confusion now, as you've talked about the $1 billion of unspent money at Veterans Affairs. You've talked about that and where that money went. Now the AG's report on mental health, the miscommunication on the $200 million the government is spending on it, his whole notion that he's in Italy instead of answering key questions. Has your minister lost touch with the key constituents? Is it time for him to go?
Evan, yeah, that was a long prelude you gave there. So let me step back for a second and talk about where we actually are with veterans. We're spending more money on veterans than ever before, $800 million more than the last last government at a time where the overall number of veterans is actually going down. The challenge we have, Evan, is we've just come through 12 years of war in Afghanistan, and we have a modern need within Veterans Affairs and a rising need of mental health. So if you look at Veterans Affairs, 25 years ago, it was probably one of the more sleepier ministries in Ottawa. It's now going through a period of profound change, in large part due to this new rising demand. I say quite frequently in the House, Veterans Affairs now has to deal with war veterans in their 20s and in their 90s, each of whom draw services in different ways.
But Mr. O'Toole, I think you're singing from the choir here. The question is Minister Fantino the guy that can make those changes? Can he actually take on that challenge, or has he lost credibility to do so?
The first meeting you referred to with the group of veterans, Evan, I met with them. They were here as part of a PSAC organized series of events.
Oh, come on.
When they met with us, they didn't want to speak.
They were
you
veterans who wanted to speak to the
minister. Minister Fantino was at a cabinet meeting actually fighting for more funding.
But to be fair, sir, you can't. But hang on, are you dividing tiers of veterans, sir?
No.
You're not saying there's union member veterans and other veterans. Aren't they all just veterans?
Absolutely. And you're going to see the vast majority of veterans are the silent majority that probably think there's ways the system can be improved, but feel that they've been quite well dealt with. That's the majority that I speak to on a weekly basis. There's some who disagree. Everyone is able to put their voice forward, but you got to remember, funding is going up at a time where the overall number of
I know the opposition want to get in, but one last question. Mr. O'Toole, that may all be true, but one of the criticisms has been that he's not answering questions. Look, I have asked to have him on this program on CBC Radio's The House. They said he was in Italy, he couldn't speak, although we could have done it by phone. Today, he's not available on this program. You're not even the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs, yet you've been out front every day. This isn't even your portfolio. Some people want to know. This suggests the guy that's dodging questions. Where is he? Why won't he answer questions straight up?
Well, on a personal front, Evan, I've been an advocate in this space for veterans and military families since I left the Canadian Forces almost 10 years ago. But look, the Auditor General report, which fueled most of the discussion last week, the very fact that the Auditor General looked at how mental health spending was going for veterans was because Minister Fantino asked him to analyze whether we were meeting the needs of veterans. We are, it appears, on the vocational end, but we're not on the disability benefit end. These gentlemen probably haven't even read the Auditor General's report.
Yes, we have.
They don't know that it was two divisions, the vocational side, where we're meeting actually the objectives, and the disability benefits, where we've got to get better and we're committed to.
Look, everybody, Aaron's a nice guy. He was in the forces. He's very sympathetic, but he's not the guy. Julian Fantino is there, but there's a key voice that's not being, is not recognized, and that is the Auditor General. He said that it takes 8 months to get access to a program. That's a very long period of time, and we know the costs have gone up and money has gone up. That's to be expected, but that's not saying, well, we spent more money, therefore we're great. The problem is there's a serious gap there. Veterans know it. The minister does not have the confidence of veterans. And when the Auditor General says it's taken 8 months to get access to services, that families don't get access to the services, that it takes 4 months to get even get an appointment to start the process, then something is clearly wrong. And Minister Fantino is in charge of that. They've had 4 years to even find out what they don't even know what's going on in the department because they haven't got the measures in place to take it up. So
Actually,
this is a serious problem.
What he said is that it takes up to a year. In fact, he said it on your program, the Auditor General. 8 months to get through the process, 4 months to get into a clinic. That's the first problem. The second problem is that he's not taking them seriously. He's not taking these issues to the cabinet table. He's either unable or unwilling to advocate on their behalf. And he's ceding constantly to the Prime Minister's need to have a surplus next year. And that's what it boils down to. Let's not kid ourselves. He's being cut off, funds are being cut off so that they're not available for veterans' needs. And they've been vocalizing this for years.
Okay.
Evan, the other thing he's done, as Frank knows, the Veterans Affairs Committee had an all-party agreement on how to improve the new Veterans Charter.
And he's done nothing.
Some of the 4 things
He's
have been
done
acted upon
nothing.
already.
No.
You'll see several others over the next
At
few
no
months
cost.
that are being looked at.
But-
I'm hoping we can get back to the spirit of nonpartisanship I showed.
But I guess I got a minute here. I'll just show you a picture because, again, I'm hearing from veterans, Mr. O'Toole. People are saying, get the minister on, get his parliamentary secretary. No one's got a problem with Aaron O'Toole. You're a veteran yourself, but this just happens not to be your department. There was questions about where the minister was during the report. I know he was in Italy, but look at veterans. There was a very important conference about veterans' mental health that was going on. The minister was scheduled to speak there according to the brochure. Now, let me show you a picture. There he is, keynote speakers. Here it was, supposed to be speaking on November 24th. Minister Fantino there beside the CDS, General Tom Lawson. He wasn't there. I have to tell you, they said, oh, it was a scheduling mishap. He was supposed to be in Italy. I've tried for 4 days to talk to the people there to get some clarity as to why then they printed a color brochure with his picture on it if he wasn't supposed to be there. I've heard back from no one on that except promises. I guess the question is, does this again say to veterans, it's a lot of talk about there, but I'm not going to be here. What is that? What message is that sending?
Well, if you look at that conference in particular, Evan, the SIMVAR conference on veteran and military mental health, Minister Ambrose and the True Patriot Love Foundation announced funding there. MP Ted Opitz, another veteran in our caucus, was also part of the conference. I don't know if Minister Fantino was ever scheduled to be part of it. It was a gathering point for the veterans community. It's an excellent group coordinating research across the country. This is a time where, you know, there's a lot of partisan attacks at a time. When if you actually look at the underlying issues, you know, the fights we've been having over estimates and the setting up of spending over the next few years on mental health, I should be asking for the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, who's an NDP member, to resign, because he doesn't seem to understand how it works.
I get it, but you know, when a guy appears in an expensively produced color brochure as the keynote speaker, and he's not there, it just happens to coincide with the day a scathing report by the Auditor General comes off, I don't know. You do the math.
Evan, you know that veterans have typically been a base of conservative support. And when you have a movement starting on one end of the country and going from C to C to C, anything but conservative, you know that things are serious. You know that things are serious when the Deputy Director of Communications from the Prime Minister's office is sent on a temporary basis into Minister Fantino's office to take charge of a ship that's falling apart.
Okay, I got to leave it there. Just to clarify, it is true someone from the Prime Minister's office Communication Department has now moved over to Minister Fantino. The opposition can draw conclusions. I don't know about staffing, but some have said that PMO is now more involved in Veterans Affairs. Aaron O'Toole, Jack Harris, Frank Valerian, it's always good to have you three gentlemen on the program. You know I'll have you back anytime. Thanks, gents.
Thank you, Aaron.